Today we are going to talk about the minimum tools needed to perform a task like this 67 MGB restoration. And don't be an idiot. Always wear protective gear.
I've laid out in front of you an array of clamps. You'll be using clamps all the time for clamping, yes. A lot of these are kind of from woodworking, but they're just as fine for metalworking and holding parts together while you're welding or whatever it is you're doing. Nothing really gee whiz here. You've got your smaller hand clamps here. I've actually used this when I was doing the castle rails because you need something with a bigger grip distance here, and you can get these in different sizes too. Of course, you know about these guys, these adjustables. Of course, typical wood clamps. What you might not know about these types of clamps is you can reverse the end piece to go from a clamp like this, a clamping action where you're squeezing, but if you reverse this from here, from this end to this end, you can create a tool that spreads. Alright, so just know that. Other than that, a clamp is a clamp, and you will use them. Moving on from the, as I said, kind of woodworking clamps, is you've got your vice grip based clamps, all based on your vice grip pliers. And what makes these good is because they apply a much stronger clamping force than some of the woodworking ones. And then, so you've got these longer reach ones, like this and this. Then you've got specialized ones like this, which you clamp, and it's got the space here so you can weld between the two sides. This can be used similarly. It's got a longer clamping area, but you can also use these for bending tabs and making, flanges in metal, 90-degree bends. Again, your typical vice grips. You will use these all the time, again, because they put on a very strong clamping pressure to hold sheet metal together while you're drilling or welding, or just holding them in place for test fits.
Thanks, John. Great information. What else can you tell us?
Here's a couple of lesser known clamps. Of course, you got the good old screw, sheet metal screw. And again, they're very good for holding parts in place while you're welding. Again, because they're removable, you screw them in, you unscrew them when you're done, just weld the holes up after you're done. So, very good to use for holding parts together. Little less known device is this bad boy. It's called a cleco. It's from the aerospace industry. Is where you'll see them most of the time. And I'm doing this one-handed, but you got these spring-loaded clips. You can get different diameters. I believe this is 1/8 of an inch. So the cleco works. It's a spring-loaded chamber here. Load them into these special pliers like this. This flange or ridge fits into that C. And then you just squeeze. And you'll notice that this tip protrudes. That's the diameter that you're specifying there. Then you just take your pieces to be held together. I've already pre-drilled the 1/8 hole. I got it in a line. What was it? There. And then you just squeeze. And then you stick this in the hole. And you let go. And those things are together. They are tight. And you just use them kind of like a screw. They're just a modified screw, but rather than twisting, you just pushing in and let go. Again, perfect for lining up parts, holding them in place while you're welding. And it's as simple as drilling a pilot hole through the two pieces. So you don't see or hear about these that often, but they're a great thing.
Got any more good stuff for us, John? I'd like to hear about different types of hammers.
Here I'm showing an array of hammers that are used for different things. Use at your own will. Nothing much to say, depending on what you're doing. These are dead blow hammers. They've got sand or a metal bit in here that keeps the force going in the direction. They don't rebound, so to speak. And they're usually made of a plastic or non-metallic end, so you don't put dents and stuff in the things you're pounding with that. Versus these, well, certainly this will put a dent in what you're hammering, and certainly the ball peen. And these guys here, don't ask how that happened. These guys here are all just slightly different variations on a theme of a flat end. And then this one has a pointed end, this one has a chisel end, and this one has two flat ends. Basically what you're doing here is by decreasing the size of the end from, say, this big flat 1-inch diameter surface area down to a very pointed surface area. This one's not quite as concentrated an area as the point is, but what you're doing is you're just changing the amount of pressure or force you're putting on what you're hitting, right? The smaller the point, the more force you're putting at that spot. So this spreads the load out, this spreads or concentrates the load on what you're hitting, and this is kind of a happy medium. So that's the philosophy behind them. So use them as required based on what you're doing. Usually slight taps to get metal with where you want it to be is what you'll be doing. And just, again, I am by no means a metal expert, but I've done it now on this restoration enough to know where different tools fit into the grand scheme of what you're doing. These guys are called dollies, and it's just a mass. They got different shapes and different curvatures on them, and you'll use these in conjunction with the hammer. You put that behind the metal, and then you bang on this side of the metal with it, and you can get it to deform based on the shape you've selected. And that's all there is to those.